In the late 90s, the internet was still a quiet place where you could start over without leaving your house, where you could tell the truth to a stranger more easily than the people sitting across the room for you. For Toni Bachman, it became a lifeline. After a year marked by loss of a child, of stability, of the version of her life she thought she was building, Toni began reaching outward, to coworkers, to friends, and eventually to someone she met online, a man hundreds of miles away in West Virginia who, over time, became part of her daily life. They wrote to each other constantly, about grief, about hope, about what might come next. And here, in Minnesota, inside the home she shared with her husband and 3 boys, something was shifting. By April of 1997, Toni was making decisions about her future, about whether she would stay or whether she would go. And then one night, she disappeared. At the time, there were questions no one could answer. Was Toni Bachman in danger, or had she finally found a way out? This is part 1 of her story.
Hi, I'm Vanessa.
And I'm Amy.
And you're listening to She Goes by Jane. At the end of this episode and every episode, we will be joined by a special guest who will read an original poem by Amy Baker about the women we're featuring. This week, we are joined by Astrid Rotenberry.
Hi, Vanessa.
Hi, Amy.
Vanessa, we are of an age.
Really? We're going to say it like that?
Yes. We are part of the generation that remembers pre-internet versus internet.
We are of an age for that.
Do you remember getting the internet? Like, when did you get the internet?
Ooh, probably late high school.
And then what did you do on the internet?
Honestly, I didn't really know what it was for a ton. Like, I didn't do much. I mostly went to, I remember there was a lot of online games.
Okay.
So I remember doing stuff like that, but I don't remember doing too much. Maybe a little bit of like email.
Okay.
And with like other people who might have that at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Very, very basic things. I was not.
Okay, Vanessa, we had very different early internet experiences. It sounds like. So I got it in 8th grade.
Okay. So yeah, we probably would have gotten it around the same year then.
Probably, yes.
If you're in 8th grade, I would have been in, like 11th.
Okay, so I was in every chat room I could find.
As a little 8th grader?
Yes.
With the new internet being so big and scary, and all I was like, so many kids are going to get kidnapped. Because that's where I was in my head as an 11th grader, was like, this is going to lead to people getting kidnapped because you can't see their faces.
Oh, yeah.
And it could be anybody.
So I had ICQ. I was in every chat room.
No.
Yes.
No, Amy.
I was. Okay. And then I'm going to say this.
See, if I would have been like your older big sister type friend, I would have been like, no.
Okay. I probably needed that. So I'm going to say this. We are never going to discuss this ever again.
But you're about to discuss it right now on the pod.
Yes.
Okay.
It does also mean to our listeners, you are never going to bring this up ever.
Are we like a pajama party status right now where we're like
yes.
a deep, dark secret? Okay.
We are not discussing this outside of this space.
Oh my God. What is happening here?
Okay. So I had an internet boyfriend. I did.
In 8th grade?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How do you know it was an internet boyfriend?
Okay.
It could have been anybody.
Yes. Adult me does know this.
You.
That Michael from California, I will not say more of his.
How old was he?
He said he was like, 16?
Isn't that a bit old?
Okay,
for an 8th grader?
Yes.
Michael from California, who was 16,
right.
was probably like Michael from California, who was like 50.
Probably. Because, like, did he say that he, like, drove the sports car that I wanted? Yes.
Oh, the 16-year-old child had a sports car that you wanted?
Yeah. Did he say he, like, did, like, catalog modeling? Yes, he did.
Oh, no.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
So my St. Ives game was fun and exciting, but probably not as fun and exciting as Michael. I mean, I get it.
Yeah.
That's good that you know that.
Now we know.
And
now we know.
Now we know.
But the those early internet days were something. And the reason that I'm talking about those early internet days is because we are going back in time to 1997.
Okay. I know that you've been working on this for 2 weeks, right?
Yes.
And I know that you've been extremely angry.
Extremely angry. So we're going to release this over the course of 2 weeks, right? So for our listeners, I would love to hear from you during those 2 weeks, even after, kind of as the story is unfolding, about your thoughts on the case. Because, yeah, I mean, I've just been kind of walking around like thinking about this by myself, and now I'm sharing it with all of you. To add some clarity, there is going to be a measure of violence in what we're talking about, particularly as we progress into the second episode. But also the other thing that I want people to have some caution about is that I will be reading some emails, and some of that language is language that I use in everyday life, but also we typically don't use on the podcast.
Okay. And to be clear, I am not shaming anyone for any past relationships or chats that they did have online, because I think we came from this like not knowing at the time the internet was so new what to get into. And I think it's that hindsight part of me. Like, it was a level of distrust then, but also, I mean, I was in a relationship when the internet came out. Had I not been, would I have been on there talking to people? Maybe. So it's just that thing of like, if what you're about to tell me has something to do with that, in no way am I blaming Toni for any of what is coming. Because you told me loosely that it has to do with a conversation online, but I don't want anyone to think that, like, I don't think that these things can happen.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
It's absolutely, things happen. When I'm teasing Amy about this, it's very lighthearted. I know that it can be fun and exciting to get into these conversations.
I think as well, you know, one thing as we talk through this case, one huge difference is I was a literal child in 8th grade, messaging with what was probably adult men, I'm guessing. And then in this instance, what we're talking about specifically is an adult.
She is an adult. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So let's
get into it, because I don't know what's happening other than that she's talking to somebody online.
On Friday, April 25th, 1997, 38-year-old Toni Bachman sat at her home computer. It was after work. She'd just finished up her job at the Hamline University campus, and she'd driven to her small home in White Bear Township, which is nearby, that she shared with her husband, Norman, and 3 stepsons. It was quiet in the small Stillwater Street address as Toni turned on her computer, but it wouldn't be for long. In the cool glow of her computer screen, she opened up an email and addressed it to her online boyfriend, David, who lived thousands of miles away in West Virginia. Typing quickly, Toni wrote, "I think Norm is coming home from work to fight again, only this time, fight in a much bigger way. He is threatening me with stuff." She hit send, the message speeding along the internet to reach its destination at 8:18 p.m. At 8:58 p.m., Toni sent another message, also to David. This time she wrote, "I'm back on email, but can't chat because Norm is home. So, whatever. Love you, Toni. P.S. He's staring at the screen too. I love you." 3 days later, when David hadn't heard from her, he wrote back, "Hey, hon, are you doing okay? Do you think we can chat tonight? I hope so. I miss you." Roughly 5 hours later, David sent another email. This one read, "Are you doing okay, hon? I haven't heard from you. I hope that you're okay and that nothing is wrong. Hope to hear from you soon." But Toni never responded.
There's a lot happening there.
Yes.
Norman's seeing this?
Norman is seeing this. So Norman, her husband, is seeing her
and then
write this message.
David, I'm guessing, is a real person.
David is a real person.
And he waited 3 days?
Oh, because he hadn't heard from her. Yeah.
After not hearing from her?
Yeah, which is unusual because the two had actually exchanged messages and communications back and forth pretty regularly, if not daily.
But when somebody's like, yeah, my husband's looking at the screen right now and he wants to fight.
And then you don't hear from that person.
For 3 days? David.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, so David's a very real person.
Very real person. So he was at one point, I'm sure, questioned in this?
Yes, he's going to get questioned. A lot is going to happen in this story. So
I mean, a lot already just
did.
Just did.
Yeah, I kind of threw us into this.
You did throw us into this.
Okay.
We're going to hear a little bit about Toni?
Yes. So I don't actually know a ton about Toni herself before these incidences. So I do know that Toni was born in Minnesota in 1959 to a rather large, big, vibrant family. She has a lot of brothers. And she started dating a man named Norman in 1986. So this situation was messy. Norman and his ex-wife, Gail, had 2 children together, but when they divorced in April of 1986, she was pregnant with their 3rd. Gail gave birth that September, and by October, Toni and Norman were already living together.
So do they have shared custody of the kids with Gail?
Yeah, so I get the impression that the kids are actually with Norman a lot.
Okay.
So the kids have a lot of contact time with both Toni and Norman.
Okay.
Their relationship is definitely on a fast track. So by the summer of 1987, they are already married. But it was clear early on that violence was a part of their marriage. One police report from that year alleges that Norman had choked Toni. And just as equally, their marriage was also marked by heartache. Toni, who had also wanted to have children, had 5 miscarriages between May of 1987 and May of 1994. In September of 1996, she gave birth to a boy that she named Michael, but he passed away in just minutes after birth. And it was a loss that really devastated Toni. Now, Toni was well loved by many, and many of those friends and confidants were women that she worked with at Hamline University, where she had worked as a clerk in the IT department. Many of them recall being drawn in by her warmness and her sense of humor, and even years later, they'd joke about the bright yellow broken down Yugo that Toni would drive because she loved it so much. They'd also recall how Toni had just kind of welcomed them in and would just strike up conversations so that they felt like so comfortable, like they'd known her forever.
So she's just like a really warm personality.
Yeah.
She's and then in this friendly. Bright yellow Yugo, I don't know anything about cars, so I don't know what a Yugo was, but you are a car person.
Yes.
Did you know what that was immediately?
Yes. And it's kind of like a cute, funny car for her to be driving around, and I can see why she didn't want to give up her Yugo. They're just kind of funny looking and noticeable. So the fact that it's also bright yellow, I just
makes it even more noticeable.
Yeah. Now, all of these friends who are also coworkers, right? They are aware of how heartbroken Toni was about the loss of her son, Michael. But even though they were there for her, Toni needed other people to talk to, people who actually understood what she was going through in that moment. And that's when she found an online listserv called the Inner Circle, which was kind of a gathering place for people experiencing grief. Again, the internet is still relatively new for everyday consumers at this point, but Toni took to it eagerly, and she really did seek out those early message boards and listservs and sites where people could connect. The Inner Circle was relatively small. I mean, it is called the Inner Circle. It's just 15 to 20 people across the US who could post messages about their daily lives and also experiences in grieving. Now, again, email and listservs like this reduced the time and distance between her and others. And this new group of people became her friends and her confidants as well. And she even started an online relationship of sorts with a man referred to as VS, who lived in Pennsylvania. And she also had a different one going on with David, a man from West Virginia. On January 14th, 1997, Toni wrote to the Inner Circle and said, "I told Norm last night that I want a divorce. It's not about VS, and it's not about David. It's about me. Right now, I need to get on my own, and it's going to take me a few months to do. I still am unwilling to just up and leave for the kids' sake." She also wrote in an email to David on January 22nd, "I wish I could just up and leave, but I can't do that to the boys. I just can't. The financial picture makes it pretty difficult as well. I just can't find it in my heart to be that mean." By then, Toni had been in the boys' life from the time they were small, and the boys now were between the ages of 9 and 13, and they'd always had Toni around. So it was natural that she would be worried about what might happen to them, and the Inner Circle and David were also well aware of how she felt about the boys.
Well, and she was helping to raise the youngest one since before he was born,
yeah.
Kind of, it sounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
She was there.
Yeah. I mean, even the oldest, when she first met him, I think he was 3 years old.
Oh, so he wouldn't remember life without her?
So all of the boys, Toni has always been there.
Yeah.
Right? And it's also the Inner Circle that she turned to when she lost her job at the very end of February. She wrote, "On Friday at precisely 2 p.m., I was told that my job was being eliminated." Toni then went on to detail the offer that Hamline had made to her. She would be reassigned to the Human Resources Department for 3 months while they assisted her in finding a different job on campus. If during that time she decided to leave, they would give her a severance package of 1 week's pay for every year she worked. That, along with benefits, would be like 10 weeks worth of salary. So, because she'd worked there for 10 years. Toni was actually really conflicted about this. It seemed like the universe might be offering her the perfect opportunity to change her life, but is that what she really wanted? Added to that, financially, she really wasn't in a great place. She had some credit card debt that she'd been paying on, and also her wages were being garnished for lack of payment on student loans. It really wasn't a great position from which to make a dramatic life change, but then again, there was this severance package. It was really hard for her to know what to do. She wasn't even fully certain about what was going on with David, but they'd progressed to messaging multiple times a day, and she told friends that she loved him, but again, was this all an illusion? On March 31st, she wrote to David, "You said in your email yesterday that you really want to have me there with you. David, do you think this is wise? We've only met here in cyberspace. Do you think it's wise to make a move of the magnitude without ever meeting first? My tendency to say no, because we can't know for sure if what we think we have is or will be real until we meet face to face. At one point, you talked about coming up here for a visit in April. It hasn't been mentioned for a long while. I know I feel very strongly about some issues in this regard, and I guess I need to discuss them with you and see where you stand."
See, she is being kind of very careful with this.
Yes.
Now, were there ever interviews done with David after? Was he actually in love with her?
I do know that he was interviewed by police, and during those interviews, he did seem to also feel affection for Toni. So yeah.
So this was a genuine online love.
Yes. They had really built up a rapport.
Okay. That kind of makes the whole thing sadder.
So
she was probably right on that brink of maybe getting out of that marriage and
yeah. So
she's with this person.
She is, and she's really just stressed at this time. What is the right choice, right?
Right.
She has debt. She has the kids in her life. She's got David that she's kind of falling in love with, but also she's never met him in person, and he's not in her state, and she's always lived in Minnesota. So all of this is really hard,
yeah.
Right? We'll be back in a moment. Despite her hesitancy that she's talking about in private to David, in public, she's kind of seeming more confident about her growing relationship with him, as well as her decision to actually divorce Norman. So she had actually spoken to a lawyer, and Norman was well aware of her plans to divorce and aware that she was seeing someone online. This is not hidden from him. On April 16th, she posted again to the inner circle about her job, her marriage, and her growing attachment to David in West Virginia. "I told Norm I'm leaving at the end of the month. In reality, I don't know if that's possible. I can't find an apartment. But I'm still looking. David and I are connecting in person in early March." I'm taking it to mean here she meant May. "And perhaps at the end of May, I will be moving to West Virginia if all goes as being planned right now. And you know how plans can change." Again, despite this, Toni wrote that she liked her new job in human resources. She found it fun, and it seemed like her supervisor there wanted to hire her on. But as soon as she said yes, that severance package would be off the table. By April 21st, it seemed like she was ready to radically change her life. She wrote to the inner circle, "More than anything, I have this incredible urge to throw every sense of caution I have to the winds. No matter how much reserve you all know I have, I want to step out of the box and do something incredibly unlike myself, and I want to tell David in the worst way. But I'm afraid I may meet with rejection. I don't know why I feel it may be there even. What I want to do, and I'm serious beyond belief, ladies, is pack up, hit the road, and go to him in West Virginia." She copied and pasted this message to David in an email, adding, "At the very least, I'd never go to my grave regretting that which I wished I'd done, because I would have done it." We don't actually know how either the Inner Circle or David responded to this declaration, but we do know that the next day, on April 22nd, she actually made a decision. She wrote to the Inner Circle that she'd taken on a role as a benefits/compensation analyst at Hamline. What the heck, she wrote. Looks like life is still a continuous merry-go-round. Problem is, being hired means I turned down the severance package and any hope of being able to financially afford to travel down the road to West Virginia. The decision was made. Toni would be staying in Minnesota for the time being.
She just has a lot of reasons, I think, to accept it, even if she's turning down like her dream.
Exactly. And we do know that she was very dedicated and worried about the boys that she had been raising.
They're still pretty young. Yeah.
And then also, with David, she thought she had a connection there, but they'd never met face to face. She knows she doesn't know him like that.
Yeah. There'd be all kinds of insecurities, I think, about when you finally meet in person. Would you actually be attracted to one another?
Exactly. Yeah. So now, despite this decision, it seems that she does want to continue her relationship with David. So this didn't end their relationship. And she did also want to continue to move forward with divorcing Norman.
Okay.
One of her coworkers said that Toni seemed to still be happy in her internet romance with David, and that the two had started talking about the possibility of him moving to Minnesota. With her new job, she would be able to financially support him through the move and to help him get established in the area if that's what he decided to do, right? On April 23rd, Toni had lunch with one of her coworkers. They chatted about normal stuff, and Toni's new relationship was one of the topics. But Toni didn't say anything about immediate plans to take action in her divorce. It's in progress, but there's nothing on the immediate horizon, right? Another coworker had lunch with her 2 days later, which was Friday, April 25th. The two talked about how Toni wanted to leave Norman, but also wanted her finances to be more settled before she fully took some action. That night is the night that Toni went home and wrote those 2 emails to David, telling him that Norman was on his way home and wanted to fight, and that he'd been threatening her. And then she sent the next email 40 minutes later, letting him know that Norman was watching the screen as she wrote. By Monday morning, Toni didn't show up to her job at Hamline. It was unusual for Toni, particularly since she had just begun her new role, and her supervisor called Toni's home number. Norman answered. Norman told Toni's supervisor that Toni had finally left him on Sunday afternoon. Toni should still have come to work, and it's not like she had planned to leave her job, so what is exactly going on here, right? And when she'd taken the position, she had bought a new mouse pad, bulletin board, and calendar for her desk, so it really didn't seem like she planned to also just suddenly leave her job. Later that day, Norman called Toni's office again. This time, he told her supervisor that Toni had called him that afternoon and told him that leaving him was for the best.
But even if she left him, wouldn't she still show up at work?
One would assume, right?
Because, you're not leaving your life, you're leaving one person.
Exactly.
Now, just curiosity, and I don't know if you know the answer to this either, but had she ever told David or the Inner Circle about Norman's past abuses?
Oh, him choking her?
Yeah.
I am not sure. The only reason I know that is because there was a notation about a police report about it.
So we don't know if she ever told anyone else her
history with him. Yeah, I think they know that Norman wasn't always the nicest to her, but I don't know if they know that physical altercation had occurred in the past.
Okay.
But as the days passed, Toni's friends at work became even more concerned. Toni hadn't expressed that she planned to leave Norman that specific weekend, and she had been open about her plans with them. And she'd been happy about her new job, and it didn't make sense for her not to come in, let alone not call. Now, on May 1st, the coworker who got particularly concerned decides to call police. And the next day, a deputy with the Ramsey County Sheriff's Department went to Toni's home because of this call. Norman was there, and he explained that he hadn't seen Toni since the Friday before. The two had argued, he said, and after that, they only communicated through the closed bedroom door. She went in there, and she hid in their bedroom all weekend. That Sunday, Norman said she'd asked him to take the kids to the store, and when they got back, Toni wasn't there, and he hadn't heard from her or seen her since. The deputy got permission to walk through the house, but nothing seemed unusual in their small home, so he left, likely believing that Toni had left her husband just as he said. But Toni's friends and coworkers weren't the only ones worried about Toni. On May 12th, Toni's mother also reported her missing to police. Her name is Donna, and she had tried to call Toni on Saturday, April 26th, which is the day after Toni had sent those final email and messages. Norman was the one who answered the phone, and he said that Toni had a painful boil and was resting.
Do you think Donna bought this story? Because, I don't personally that much about, boils, but I think it's just kind of like a really bad pimple, right?
Yeah, so boils are basically a way to describe a pus-filled cyst type thing, right?
But would you rest for one of those? Would you be in bed all weekend over a boil?
Yeah, I don't think so. Look, I've not actually had one.
I haven't had one, and correct me if I'm wrong, listeners, but I just feel like if you, I have had a bad pimple or an ingrown hair or a cystic pimple before, but I really don't think that would be a reason to stay in bed.
Bed rest. Yeah, I mean, this doesn't seem necessarily typical. And it's just sort of an odd thing. And we probably, I would not have included it if this doesn't become a kind of feature of this story.
So It's going to become a thing?
It's a thing, yes.
I just don't know. He could have picked something better. Norman seems a little shady to me right now. I don't know exactly what's happening. But, couldn't he be she had the flu?
Yeah, no.
Why we got to do boil?
Yeah. So apparently she might have actually had one.
Okay.
Right. Now, Norman, you're asking me, does her mom buy this kind of story? He keeps her on the phone, kind of complaining about his marriage and basically talking all about how he and Toni are having problems. Yeah.
Okay.
So Donna gets off the phone with him. She tries again the next day, April 27th, which is the Sunday. And this time Norman says that Toni is out shopping.
Okay.
On May 1st, which is the same day that Toni's coworkers had contacted police, Donna called the house again, and this time she left a message on the answering machine. Soon after, Norman actually calls her back, and this time he said his wife had left him.
But wouldn't she have told her mom?
Right. Yeah. Wouldn't she have been in communication?
Wouldn't that be maybe the first place she'd call?
So Toni had a good relationship with her mom. They spoke weekly, right?
Okay.
And so this would have been highly unusual to be getting this major life-changing information from Norman.
She seems like a really friendly, outgoing person. So she's talking to the group online. She's open with her coworkers. She's close with her mom. It's not adding up.
The last straw for her mom comes on Mother's Day, which is, so that Sunday, on that Mother's Day, the day passes and she doesn't hear from Toni. And that's when her mom calls police. This is likely the moment that it became evident to the Ramsey County sheriffs that something actually might be going on. They now had 2 reports of Toni being missing with no apparent sightings of her in between. On May 13th, they spoke with Norman again. He again said that he saw her on Friday and that she was uncomfortable because she had a boil. And he said then he left for work around 6:30 p.m. But he came back home around 10 p.m. because Toni was having trouble with the kids. Things were rough that weekend. The 2, he said, had been talking about divorce and she had stayed in the bedroom throughout the weekend. Unlike before when he said he didn't physically see her that weekend, this time he said he drove her to Walgreens on Sunday so that she could get some bandaging for her boil. And then when they got home, she asked him to take the kids to the store. He said they left around 4:30 and got home around 6:30. And when he got home, Toni was gone.
He is obsessed with the boil.
Yeah. Now, Norman says that it wasn't until Monday that he finds a note from Toni. It simply said, "Bye, Norm. I'll call you soon."
Okay. His stories just keep kind of shifting.
Now, while they're questioning him, the sheriff's officers asked if they could see the note, and Norman said that was not possible. He said he'd misplaced it in the days since she left. But he said she did call him the Monday after she left and told him she was sorry for the way it happened, but she didn't owe him anything. She added that leaving was what was best for the children. After this questioning, Norman did something else. He said that he'd gotten his oldest son to hack into Toni's email after she left, which sounds like just logging into her email. He then printed off hundreds of pages of emails, principally between Toni and David. The sheriff's office notations here are clear. These documents did reveal a growing relationship between Toni and David and contained content that, in their words, indicated sexual fantasizing between the two. This is what we were reduced to back in the day. Sending sexy emails.
Sexy. And email now is like the least sexy thing on the planet.
Now, it's clear the two had maintained an ongoing connection through email. Now, that day, they also interviewed two of Norman's sons. I'm actually not going to use their names throughout this podcast, just an initial for each of them. N is the oldest. He was 13 at the time. He said that he and his brothers went fishing on Saturday and he didn't see Toni because she was in the bedroom, but he thought he heard her crying before they left. Later, he said they heard footsteps and the TV station being turned. He also thought he heard her footsteps on Sunday as well before their dad took them to the store. N also said his father had told him about the note that Toni had left, but he never actually saw the note himself. F was also interviewed. F is the youngest of the three boys, and he was 9 at the time. Like his brother, the last time he actually saw Toni was Friday night, and he'd heard her and Norman arguing. He specifically recalled Toni saying their marriage was an illusion. F went fishing with his brothers on Sunday and recalled his father trying to get into the bedroom. He said he heard Toni saying no, and later he heard his dad talking to her again, but he didn't hear her response. It seems like it would take 6 days before they would interview C, who's the middle son, who was then just 12. He said that Toni had talked about leaving, and he'd also witnessed his father and Toni arguing Friday night. He said they started arguing on the phone before Norman even came home. And once he did, they continued to argue until around midnight. Like his brothers, he didn't actually see her the rest of the weekend and confirmed that he went with her dad to Kowalski's grocery store at around 4:30 p.m. He said some of her stuff was missing, but that her favorite pair of shoes had actually been left behind. But then C shares one detail that his brother didn't. He said that on Wednesday before that weekend, he'd actually overheard Toni talking on the phone with someone. He said she told that person that she loved him and to pick her up at the airport on Sunday. So did Toni actually leave on her own free will? And Vanessa, Toni's story does not end here, but I'm going to have to put a pause on our episode today. So to our listeners, join us next week for more of Toni's story. In the meantime, hit the share button on this episode because Toni has been missing for 28 years this April, and I know someone must know something. And as always, if you have any questions about her case, feel free to send them our way on social media so we can know what you're thinking so far.
We are now going to listen to Amy's poem, When We Lived Briefly in GeoCities, read by Astrid Rochenberry. Astrid Rochenberry is a New York-based actress best known for her role as Catherine Kelly in Netflix's His and Hers. Other credits include The Four Seasons, Law & Order SVU, and the upcoming Maximum Pleasure Guaranteed on Apple TV+. Originally from Tennessee, she holds a BFA in theater performance and is passionate about making the arts accessible and encouraging young artists to pursue their dreams.
When We Lived Briefly in GeoCities. Toni Bachman, 38, missing since April 25th, 1997, from White Bear Township, Minnesota. We were all there, sitting in the glow of our computer screens, listening to the crackle and wail of connection, our phone lines busy, creating the divide between the before and the after. What was it like? My daughter asked me. I want to say it felt less lonely in the city, but that wasn't true. Even there, we were always alone in our separate rooms of pretending. In bed at night, I think about you. How close someone could feel through words flashing across your screen. Like a line, hurtling you into a future that was always just out of reach.
For more information about our show, please visit shegoesbyjanepodcast.com.
Bye, Vanessa.
Bye, Amy.